Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I am going to give it a few minutes to give folks time to join. Happy Sunday. Hi, Sandra. I missed you last Sunday. Glad you're here. All right, I am going to give it a few minutes. And Sandra, I designed this session with you in mind. The last, what's your question? You were asking a question about tie downs. Hello. Thank you. You were asking a question about tie downs, and I didn't see it until after I had disconnected. I think you were having Wi-Fi trouble. There was a lag, so I designed this to talk to tie downs and some other things with you in mind. So thank you. I'm glad you're here. Good morning from California. I appreciate that. I'm glad it's sunny there. We're kind of overcast. I'm hoping to see some sun here. So good morning, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I am giving it another second and then I will get started. Oh, absolutely, Sandra. With today's discussion, I'll give it just another minute and then we'll get started. Thank you all for joining. All right. I will get started. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Let me change my slide. There we go. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you all very much for joining today, wherever you are. Let me see if I can get centered in this camera too. My name is Jewel Pearson. This is Miss Bohemian Soul TV as I struggle with sitting in the right place this afternoon. This is part of the segment Creating Home, a Tiny House series. This is part of the series. This segment is What's Your Question, where I answer frequently asked tiny house questions. I alternate on Sundays with this segment with my conversations on intimate spaces. But every Sunday, I am offering live content, alternating between answering questions as well as conversations with people in and around the tiny house movement. To introduce myself, I always say I built a kind of fancy tiny house in 2015. And since that time, I have shared my journey to hopefully inspire others who are interested in the movement. I do offer coaching and consultations to help others in their tiny house journey. You can always find the links to schedule a session with me in the video descriptions below. And as I do that, I also serve up a lot of representation in the movement. I want us to see ourselves represented in this movement. I want us to understand the benefits of this movement to us and all of those things. So that is part of what I do here in the community. It is actually my intent to build figurative and literal community that is inclusive and accessible. And if you find this information in the video helpful, I hope that you will like it, you'll share it, you'll subscribe to my channel, and then also turn on the notification so that you'll know when live content is available or when content is available if you're catching up later on. All right, so let me change my screen. There we go. Pharmacy, thank you for joining. Hey there, glad you're here. Good morning from Hillsborough. Appreciate that. All right, so let me start off by saying, so this is the What's Your Question segment of the series, and I am, I don't want to say I'm running out of content, but I feel like I've answered all of the questions all of the frequently asked questions around tiny houses. So I'm trying to figure out what this segment will be, if I'll continue the segment, if it will be like maybe some open office hours where I get on and answer questions if people show up and have questions that I can answer. Maybe I'll only offer the conversation series. Um, it is definitely evolving. I'm not sure what it will look like. I don't want to get on and not have something to talk about and just be here. I don't think in this space, but I'll figure it out. I am open to suggestions, so feel free to comment. Let me know what you think. Send me an email message or a note on social media. I would appreciate it to help me figure out. I want to provide value to the community, but I also don't want to not have content and just kind of fill air or waste time or any of those things. So I am looking for feedback there. Let's see. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so that is kind of a footnote for the What's Your Question series. So today's segment, as we are talking today, it is around safety in tiny houses. It's not personal safety. I've talked about my personal safety time and time again. So it's not necessarily around personal safety, but it's more physical safety in tiny houses, things that you need to consider. It's not necessarily build safety during the process of building. I always speak to the need to hire professionals so that you can ensure the integrity of your build, especially for things like the electrical work. If you're not a professional, it's important to hire professional contractors so that you can ensure the safety of your home in that manner. Also considering your build site safety. So those are important things that you consider, but it's not necessarily what we're going to talk about today. I've tried to think about, all of the things that I am aware of that you need to be aware of around the physical safety of your tiny home. A lot of it is also applicable to conventional or traditional homes. It is not an all exhaustive list. I never claim to know everything. So we'll go through what I had to talk about today. Again, I'll answer questions that end up in the chat, and we'll go from there. So first, I'll start talking to quality materials. I know oftentimes people want to use reclaimed materials, and I touched on this a little bit, I think, in last week's session in some conversation. But if you're using reclaimed materials, you want to ensure that you're using them at the right time. So I've spoken about how sometimes people want to purchase a trailer, a used trailer, and they want to, because it's cheaper, and then they decide that they'll try to get it up to par for the tiny house build. And oftentimes they'll figure out later on that the money and the time, the expense of that was not really worth it. I don't necessarily recommend that, and I know the trailer is expensive, but I always speak to the fact that it is the foundation of the home, and it is something that I feel like is worth the expense to ensure the structural integrity of your home. I also, so that in my opinion, again, my opinion, it's not where I would want to cut corners or use reclaimed materials. But if you do decide to go that route, then you really want to ensure that the trailer is up to par for the weight of your home, for traveling, etc. Also, reclaimed materials is not where I would go for framing. Again, that is the structural integrity of your home, and you want to ensure that your framing is up to par. So I would not, again, use reclaimed materials there. So as you're building, always thinking about structural integrity. Again, I think I've shared this before. Thank you, C, for getting it crunk this morning. Um, I've always talked about how I have heard tiny houses as they move down the road, the movement, the movement of the air that's happening around a tiny house. I have heard it explained as a hurricane and a tornado happening around the house as it's moving down the road. So that's a lot of stress on a structure. So you want to always keep in mind structural integrity during the build process. Another thing to think about are your windows. If you're trying to use reclaimed materials, from a perspective of weather, older windows aren't, and I don't know technical terms, so bear with me, but you want to ensure you're not losing your heat for heating and cooling. You want to ensure your windows are at a standard for that. Also, for traveling, again, you want to ensure that the windows are on par at a standard so that they can sustain travel, as well as ensuring the climate for your home. And I can tell you, windows are not cheap. I think I cannot remember if I have 17 or 18 windows in the original tiny house, not counting the sunroom space. And that was one of the bigger expenses of my home, but I paid um, I paid money to have top of the line windows so that they would be um, that they would work for me for heating, for cooling, as well as anytime I'm moving my home, I'm not worried about the windows. As you're thinking about windows, also consider window screens, because that's not a standard. And if I'm the person, I need screens because if I'm opening my windows, I want to ensure that the bugs aren't coming in. So consider that as well. Um, Another thing around safety would be for doors. So oftentimes doors in tiny houses are designed so that they open out, so that you're saving the room in the room inside of your tiny house, and not having to accommodate doors that are opening in and taking up space. So from a safety perspective, you want to ensure, if your doors, and these are exterior doors that I'm talking about, so if you're having your doors open out, from that safe space saving perspective for a tiny house, then you want to ensure clearance for weather. So if you're in an area that receives a lot of snow, you want to ensure that you're paying attention to that, so that you're clearing the area outside your doors, or you have another method of exit just in case it happens and you're not stuck inside the home. There's another thing that you have to consider. So with my front door, with my doors opening out, there were special hinges. I think that's what where the door swings out. There was something special that had to be done for the hinges for my doors from a locking perspective, so that that hinge could not be removed from the exterior, and someone enter my home. And so that is something, a safety precaution that has to be mentioned to your manufacturer for those doors as they're opening out. Also ensuring that obviously your doors have locks and your windows have locks. So from a safety perspective. Standards, and I've got notes, so y'all bear with me. You want to have your smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. That's basically common sense, but you hear over and over how many times homes don't include that, and people perish in fires when there could have been, an easy fix for that. So, and you want to ensure that you have your smoke and your carbon monoxide detector, especially if you're using wood burning um, fireplaces, wood burning heat, wood burning for cooking. So you want to ensure that you have those in your build. You want to ensure that you're testing them. I also recommend having them hardwired so that you're not relying on a battery. They're hardwired into your electrical system. And so be sure that you're including those in your build. Also, you want to ensure that you have fire extinguishers, working fire extinguishers. Um, Insurance. And so we've talked about insurance before. There is an option for tiny house insurance. I will provide the options that I'm aware of in the description. I won't give shout outs in this presentation because I don't get anything back for that, but I do want you all to have access to names and numbers. So tiny house insurance, it is generally not your regular insurance companies that provide homeowners, standard homeowner insurance that's going to provide insurance for a tiny house. And so, and it is a little more expensive than standard home insurance, but you want to consider having that. You also want to have alternatives or an emergency plan for bad weather. Um, my home, I've shared, I don't have to leave in um, the typical storm. I think I've been here at 70-mile-per-hour winds, maybe higher. I'm not exactly sure. My house doesn't bounce or move around or anything like that. I've said that before. It is sturdy. That would be a deal breaker for me if my house bounced around. But I am very clear that if it is a significant storm that is planned, I need to have a plan B for leaving my home. I also make sure that I have weather app notifications happening on my phone so that I can be um, always conscious of storms that are approaching. We know that hurricanes, you have some notice, tornadoes, you don't, but just paying attention to weather conditions is something that I do more now than I have in the past. So that's something that you want to have on your list for physical safety. Um, Also, Zani from Off Grid Homestead, who I did interview in episode 8 of the conversation series, she speaks to having supplies of food and toiletries. She calls it a bug out kit, where you have a kit that is available to you for survival. And I don't know if it's 48, 72 hours, but she speaks to that and offers classes around that. So, having access to food and toiletries. I think the pandemic should have shown us all that we need to have some of that available to us. So that is something to consider. And if you need assistance in that area, I would check out Zani of Off Grid Homestead for some of the courses that she offers around those conversations. And then also having a backup power option, and that's something that I need to work on myself. So if you're on the grid, electric, if you would want to have a backup like a generator or a solar backup, something to back up your home should the grid go down, or if you're on solar and it's during the winter and your battery banks are draining, having some type of a backup and awareness of what it takes, what's required to run your home. All right, let's see what else. I've got a long list here. I work on this information for y'all, so I hope y'all recognize the effort that goes into this. Physical safety again. So considering your tires, if you're moving your home, if you're relocating your home, you want to check your tires, the condition of your tires, the tire pressure. If you are staying in place for an extended period of time, you don't want your home to rest completely on the tires, directly on the tires, because that's how you end up with tire rot. So I have also spoken to this, but blocking up your home so that the home is not resting completely on the tires, so that you are able to extend the life of your tires. But if you are moving, relocating, you definitely want to ensure that you're checking your tires for safety. Also, in relocating, ensuring that, or moving your tiny house, you want to consider securing the interior of the home. If there are things that are going to fall or slide about, you want to secure those things. You want to secure your exterior. So if you are going to, thank you. If you are going to be moving your home, traveling with your home, even for a short distance, you want to ensure you're checking the travel path in advance. So you're checking for trees, especially if you're not going to be on the main highways. And even though you might think it's a main thoroughfare, I think that's the right word. You have to consider trees. You have to consider low bridges. The bridge height is different on secondary roads than it is on the main interstate. So you want to consider consider that. You want to consider low power lines. All of those things, even if you're moving just a few miles, you want to run that route, check that route out before you actually get en route with the home, for the safety of your home. Um, I always suggest using reputable and experienced tow services. One, because they're going to have some insurance should something happen, that you can be compensated for, your home. And because this is something that they do on a regular, it is, tempting to say, hey, my friend has, a big enough truck and they can relocate my house for me. But if they don't have experience in that, should something go wrong, then, that is your home. So I always recommend using reputable, experienced and insured tow services. With that, and I may have touched on this a few minutes ago, but ensuring that you have egress in your homes. I know I spoke about it with the clearance for your outward opening doors. So from a safety perspective and in traditional homes, it is required that you have egress. Egress is the ability to exit the home, exiting the home using windows. So in my upper loft, all of my windows, if you remember when I first built my home, I actually had a bougie balcony off of, my bedroom that I would access via exiting that my bedroom window. But both of the windows, the side windows in my lofts are egress windows, meaning should something be happening downstairs, fire, somebody is in the house, something. If I need to get out of my house, I can get out of the house on those the two side windows. So factoring in, egress, and factoring in an additional exit. Again, I was just speaking to, um, doors opening out. So I do have a front door and a side door. Both of my doors open out. Um, and I'm, speaking to the main tiny house. My doors on this sunroom space open as, conventional, traditional doors do. But, ensuring that you have, an exit plan, you considered an exit plan for your, tiny house. Um, Stairs. Okay, so, I know people often say they don't want to deal with ladders in their tiny houses. As you get to a certain age, ladders are not necessarily sustainable, and or safe. But, one of the things with tiny house stairs is the tread, is usually, um, adjusted because you don't want to take up a lot of space with, and I think that's called tread. For some reason I'm thinking it's not, but I kind of think that's right. It's basically the depth of the stairs. So sometimes it is, kind of consolidated so that you don't take up too much room with your stairs, and so the stairs might be higher than normal. You want to ensure that, they are safe. You're not just building something that's not safe or sustainable. Also, maybe, ensuring that you have railing. I see a lot of tiny houses that have, stairs and they don't have railing. To me, that's an accident waiting to happen. So ensuring that you have, safety, you're considering your safety in that perspective. Um, Ensuring that your stairs aren't, slick is either. There's, some, I think it's like a stair tape that the, big box stores open if your stairs are slick, so that you consider putting that on your stairs, so that you're considering your safety. All right, let's see what else I have on the list. Oh, okay. All right, so also a hitch lock. Okay, so this is on the exterior. The hitch, which is what attaches to the tow truck, especially if you have a smaller home. There have been quite a few tiny houses stolen. People are just janky and they will steal anything. How easy is it to steal a tiny house or a trailer, that's unattended? And by the time you might realize it, it's gone. So a hitch lock, is valuable. It's something that is available at any of the RV stores. Chaining some people say removing the tires, but chaining the tires, um, making not making it easy for the house to be removed from your property. Again, especially for smaller homes. My house is larger. It would take extensive work to be able to relocate, especially now with my added on sunroom. But even before, it would have taken extensive work for someone to move my home. So it's not something that I'm necessarily concerned about, but I still have a hitch lock. I'm not, there's hitch locks are inexpensive. So um, I still have a hitch lock, but that's something I recommend that you have. There's also things that are GPS trackers, something that you can attach to the, or not attach. I don't know exactly how they work. Maybe you do attach them, but I know something kind of like the air tags, where you have a device in the home so that you can track the tiny house. That is something that is also something that you might want to consider. Yeah, somebody is saying, "Wow, yes, there have been several tiny houses stolen. People just do the most," and so that's a precaution that needs to be taken. Also, having an alarm system. I have a ring system. It detects motion. Most of the time out here, it's animals that are moving, but you need to know when stuff is moving around your house. Motion lights. I have cameras, and um, I'm careful with not sharing my specific location. If you pay attention to when I'm talking about my tiny house, I say that I'm located in Charlotte. Um, I'm not necessarily located in Charlotte, but one, I'm not giving away my location from because I'm not trying to let the man necessarily know where I am, as well as strange people. I've had people previously show up at my house and tell me they had been looking for me. That is scary when a random stranger is looking for you. Why? But being careful about location sharing. Um, and also using signage. It's important. So if you have an alarm system, you rely on that alarm system. Also use the signage, the signs that you put in the windows or the signs that you put in the yard to indicate that your home is monitored. That's important. So having an alarm system. Lighting for the home, exterior lighting. Plan for that in the build, just like you have, front porch lights. Plan to have security lights included in your electrical plan that are included in the home. I have exterior landscaping lights. I have motion lighting in addition to my motion detection with my security system. Um, and I laugh because I am in the deep country, and it gets really dark out here, and so I probably have lighting that is enough out here for some planes to land, but I need to know when stuff is moving. And it's sometimes scary out here in the dark, so I need to be able to see. So I recommend exterior lighting. Yes, and people are creepy, very creepy. I that when the woman showed another story, I won't get into it, but when the lady showed up that had been looking for me, she she just initially acted like she had stumbled on my tiny house. And this was early on when it was in the RV park. She initially acted like she had stumbled upon my house. And then later on, halfway in the conversation, because I was kind of cautious in the beginning and I was still trying to be nice, trying to talk about the tiny house. And then she shared that she had been looking for me. And the conversation took a bad turn at that point. That was the end of the conversation. That's very, Lifetime movie-ish. I don't do stalkerish stuff, so that was the end of that conversation. Um, in addition to lighting and things like that, also I also find the Nextdoor app to be beneficial. There's racism that happens in there, as people are concerned. If you're familiar with the Nextdoor app, you are familiar with people who make comments like, black people were in the neighborhood, things like that. There's some underlying racism in the Nextdoor app, but it is beneficial to understand break-ins and that kind of stuff. So, take it with a grain of salt and use it as you can. Um, all right, I feel like I've been talking nonstop. Um, all right. Okay, so water testing and filtering systems. If you are not on city water, you're on well water, you want to test the water of the well system. If you don't have the ability and access to test the water, then you do want to consider having a filtering system. The water out here I know has, I think it is probably, let me start trying to analyze what it is. It is, it leaves a white ring oftentimes. And so I have installed filters. I have a filter actually on the well, and I have a second filter as it's coming into my house. And also changing the filter on a regular basis. Don't just put it out there and then forget, don't address keeping the filters updated. So water testing and a filtering system. For your gray water, you want to, from a physical safety perspective, be mindful of the things that especially if your gray water is kind of just going out into the world. Gray water, if you're paying attention to the materials, the products that you're using. Gray water, again, is not black water. Black water is feces, toilet water. We're not talking about that. That has to be handled correctly for sure. But what we're talking about is the gray water that comes from your sink, your kitchen sink, that comes from your showers, your bathroom sink. So where you're washing your hands and you're washing dishes. And that is why you need to be mindful of the products that you use that are, and you're great, because gray water could be used to water the lawn, non-edible plants. I've seen people say edible plants. I wouldn't do that, but so I always say non-edible plants, but making sure that you're using appropriate products that's going out into that gray water as it's just kind of escaping into the universe. Yes, lots of heavy metals, hard water, calcium. I was thinking it was calcium. I was going to say magnesium, but then I thought I was in a biology class and I really wasn't sure I knew what I was talking about. So I just try to stay in my lane, but thank you so much. That's exactly what I was talking about with the hard water. So testing your water, filtering systems, and then ensuring that you're using your gray water appropriately. All right, trailer leveling and blocking. So thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Sandra. Okay, Pharmacy and Sandra, I can always count on getting the party started. I appreciate the love. I usually only ask for support if I have a guest, so I want to compensate my guests, but I appreciate you all so much providing some compensation for me. I appreciate y'all. I enjoy being here for my community and sharing and hopefully helping somebody in this journey. This is how I feel like I'm giving to the community. A sister is tired, so I am not always responding to emails and that type of thing anymore. I'm usually trying to direct people to YouTube to be here on Sundays, or to refer to previous conversations, because I'm trying to answer those questions and answer them in depth so that people have access to information. So I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all for being here, and I appreciate the love. All right, trailer leveling and blocking. So I have spoken, I was just speaking a little bit earlier about not having your home rest completely on the tire, so that your tires, you can extend the life of your tires, um, and blocking up your home. And so blocking is, again, concrete blocks. Some people leave their tiny homes on the jack. Sometimes they're jacks already installed on the trailer that people will use, or people will jack the home up and put the home on jacks. For me, I prefer to, if I'm going to be in the space for an extended period of time, I prefer to use concrete blocks. It's a little more work in leveling it using concrete blocks. And of course, I'm not doing it myself, so I'm hiring contractors to do it. So there's some expense associated with it. But in the long run, it's worth it to me. This time with the concrete blocks, I actually even had them put concrete, if you're not on a concrete pad and you're on the ground, ensuring that it is hard ground is one of the things that needs to be done. You can put concrete under each of the areas where you're going to block your tiny house. So my house is 28 feet long, and so I have blocked my home in three places on each side at the ends of the on both sides of the ends of the trailer. So that's four sides, and then in the middle, kind of around where the tires are, the wheel well is. And so in that area, if you could use a small concrete pad, have it leveled, concrete put there, and then block it so that it's sturdier. If it's hard ground, you don't necessarily have to do that. And when I say hard ground, ground that hasn't been manipulated, moved, not sand, something that is going to continue to settle, or if it's been moved, it's going to settle. So you want to ensure that it is hard ground, stable ground, I guess is the better thing. And so blocking it up and then leveling it. And so leveling it is, at all points in the house, ensuring that it is level from, side to side, lengthwise, widthwise, in the middle. And it is, again, a process to be done, but it is one of the things. Like I remember at one point in my home, I recognized, I could feel it in my body that my house had shifted, and it was my equilibrium was off, and I realized my house had shifted, so I had to have them come back out and reset it. So it's important from a physical standpoint that your house is level, and then ensuring, from the safety of the home, you want to ensure that it's level so that your build, the integrity of your structure is not impacted. And again, it may have to be redone if you're on soft material that's going to continue settling. Um, and then wrapping your tiny house. So I spoke to wrapping winterizing your tiny house in episode 12. Um, thank you, love. And so I'm not going to talk to wrapping, but I am going to talk to the tie down process in a little more in depth here. And I actually have a slide that I want to talk to and show you some of the content. And this is, again, the last, my last um, segment in this, what your question was, about winterizing. And I spoke a little bit about tie downs, but I want to go in more depth here for tie downs. And so I'm trying to look on my list and make sure I have covered everything that I have on the list before I move to this slide. So let me look in the comments too and see if there's anything before I move to this next slide. Let's see. All right. See, I'm going to come back to your comment about the tours. I'll come back to the question about Charlotte and tiny houses. I'll come back. I see it. I'll come back to that. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mimi. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Okay. So I see a couple of questions, but I will come back to them after we talk about tie down. So let me change my screen. Let me move myself out the way. All right. Okay, so we are talking about tie downs. And so I have spoken to the importance of tie downs. And so um tie downs, it's really something that comes from mobile homes, the process for mobile homes. Tying down a mobile home, because obviously in high winds and storms, um, you want to have a safety precaution. Even if you, hang on, even if it is a major storm and you're having to leave your house, A tie down potentially helps um, with safety in the area so that your home is not taken from the foundation. And we know tiny houses on wheels don't have foundation, but trying to provide something from a safety perspective to keep your home tethered to the ground. If you're, watch storms, a major storm, unfortunately, manufactured homes, mobile homes, they are going to fly about if it is a major storm. But this is something that you can do to try to potentially alleviate that happening. So a tie-down system, as you see the note here, it's a system of heavy-duty straps and anchors that are designed to stabilize a home. The materials that I have used are exactly materials used for mobile homes. I purchased them from a mobile home supply store. The materials I've used look exactly like the picture over on the right-hand side. But there are several different options that you can use. The picture over on the left-hand side speaks to the various ground anchors and hookup and tension devices that are available. Sometimes tie downs are called hurricane straps. So if you're Googling, you can Google mobile home tie downs or hurricane straps, and you'll get this same information to come up. The up in the middle screen, the materials that you see that say 169.95, that is the exact setup, the materials that I've used for my house. And I provided the cost so that you can see there. The material is not that expensive. Sometimes the cost, I think I've paid the cost sometimes increases, not sometimes, the cost increases as you're having someone install the tie downs. You can install them yourself or with someone that you know. If you kind of know what you're doing, it's not rocket science, but it is something that needs to be done correctly. So if you look at the bars here, and I'm gonna go back and forth to the pictures, that maybe I should have numbered the pictures, but I want to give you an idea of what happens. And so this long bar is going to be inserted into the ground. And if you look at the picture on the far right, the far right picture, what you see the top of that bar. That small black head is the top of that bar. So the bar is going all the way down into the ground, and it kind of screws into the ground. You can rotate it into the ground, or you can dig a hole, which is what I have done. Dig a hole deep enough for that bar or that auger, that anchor, and pour concrete into that hole, and then install that anchor, that auger, into that hole that is filled with concrete. Because and that's especially important if you're anchoring in a soft material, sand or something like that. You need to have something that is going to hold that auger, that anchor, into the ground. And so you are, and so again, that is how deep. If you look at I don't know exactly how tall those anchors are. Maybe about 2 feet tall. Maybe, I'm not good with measurements, but it's going all the way into the ground. And then the strap. So in this picture, the picture that has 169.95, on the left hand side of this picture is the strapping. And so, and the right on the right side, that's the bolt. So the bolt and the strap go kind of in the center of the black auger, and then it wraps around your tiny house trailer. So in this picture on the right hand side, you would imagine so this is a picture of strapping of a shed. And so where you see the wood, where this strap is wrapped around that wood, that would be the tiny house trailer. And it's a little more tricky for me on my tiny house trailer because I also have an underbody. I had my fabricator install an underbody to my trailer so that it's not open. but I have been able to strap around parts of the framing. I have strapped around the hitch. I have strapped around the area where my wheel well is. There are parts that you can wrap that metal strapping around, and then again, it connects into the bolt, and then it connects into the auger that is into the ground. The picture in the center here is also a demonstration of how it's done. So you're, again, strapping to various parts of the home. The idea in this home is also on a pier foundation, the concrete blocking that I was talking about. And so the idea is to strap as much as possible to that tiny house trailer so that you're holding that home down down into the ground. And I was getting ready to say something. I forgot. I completely forgot. I know what I was getting ready to say. So for my house, um, I have the strapping. Again, I have two straps, two tie downs at the front of the house, two at the rear of the house, and then two at the center of the house. And so I've got six. According to my conversation with the people at the mobile home store, I probably have overkill. I didn't necessarily need as much strapping for the length of my house. But that was important to me. I kind of, if for the expense, the cost of this, which is not expensive for me, the peace of mind. And again, I'm not foolish enough to think I could withstand a major hurricane with the strapping. I do see mobile homes fly about frequently during storms, but there is a peace of mind for me associated with having the strapping. And so for me, adding more than was required was okay with me. The second picture that you see here is a different type of auger. Same process. It is a concrete anchor, J-hook concrete anchor. Again, same concept. This is going in concrete. You're putting it in the ground. You're strapping it to the home. The picture that you see up above the picture where the shed, the actual picture of the shed up above that. So I understand now that some tiny house trailers have hooks manufactured into them. So you see this hook on the side of this tiny house trailer. And I understand that was the purpose of those hooks, for strapping of a tiny house using the hooks that are associated with the trailer. I probably, I'm sorry, my allergies are acting up. My nose is just really itching. I probably would still use the mobile home tie downs in addition to those hooks, just because I do more than what is required. But I also know that this is, this home is my home, and all of my money is tied up into this tiny house. So in situations like this, I am okay with doing more than what is required. So that is the tie down process, and this is what you would consider for safety perspective. This material can be found. I've seen the tie down material on Amazon. Like I said, I've purchased mine at a mobile home supply place. um this place was hsmhs.com that I took the pictures from. I'm not familiar with the site, but this material is available to you online. And if you're not going to install it yourself, you could connect with a local mobile home installing company. They are very familiar with this process. You could have them install it. A standard contractor, you could have them install it. They should be able to do that. I tend to lead toward expertise. So a mobile home person that has some expertise in this is probably the direction that I would go in. Let's see. Let me see if there are any questions before I move this slide. Let's see. Here's a question. If the land is not flat, then do you have to have more tie downs? I don't know. I don't think that would be, I can't think of how that would be applicable to it. If the land's not flat, then and I've been on areas that weren't completely flat. What that really is going to impact is if you're blocking up your home, that's really going to impact your pier foundation. So like one side of the house is going to be higher than the other side of the house to accommodate the slope. If you can envision that, like you're having to accommodate the slope, so you're having to build up one side so that you end up getting a level home. So that's going to be important if you're not on level ground, ensuring that you're blocking it up appropriately so that you end up with a level home. But from a perspective of tie downs, I can't imagine why you would need more tie downs than standard for a level ground. And again, I'm not an expert, but and right now I can't think of any reasons why that would impact it. It would definitely impact ensuring that your home is level. Let's see. Is there any company you'd recommend buying or manufacturing a tiny home from? You might have covered it, but I just got here. I do share recommended builders. I can share that list in the description of the builders and when I say recommended, these are the builders that I am familiar with. Um, there is a video that I've done on choosing a builder where I talk about the things that you'll want to consider. So don't consider my list as an all exhaustive list. This again is the builders that I'm familiar with. If you're going with another builder, do your due diligence to ensure all of the quality build, relationship. There are a lot of things that you need to consider, and I do talk about that in the video. But I can share again the list of manufacturers that builders that I recommend. How many times have you moved your tiny house? Do you have to do any special prep? My fiance and I are thinking of. Okay, I'm going to come back to that, and I think I've talked about that too in another video in detail, but I'll answer that in just a minute. Yes, Harbor Freight is another place that has this. Oh, you're very welcome, Sandra. This was mostly for you. Um, all right, I'm ready to consult with you as well. I always include that information in the video description. So um, I'll look forward to working with you. I don't see any questions specific to the tie down process, so I'm going to change my slide and then talk to some of the other questions that that I saw. Thank you. I hope this was helpful in understanding the tie down process. Again, this is to me critical for safety for your tiny house. Like just something simple that could help ensure the safety of your investment. All right, so. Um, C says, what are some key considerations for growing more mature in a tiny? See, I'm not sure. Oh, getting old. Oh, getting older in a tiny. Um, so stairs, if you're going to have an overhead loft, considering how you're going to access that as you're getting older. Possibly, so for me, as I've added the sunroom space, my thought process is that I may not always want to climb the stairs, and my stairs are very comfortable, but I may not want to always climb the stairs. So I've considered that this sunroom space at some point will become a bedroom. Um, I also would think as far as a lot of tiny houses that have convertible, the couch turns into something, or you lift up the couch and you get your clothes. I've always spoken to how for me that I knew that would get old, and I didn't do things like that. But if you have those types of things in your house, convertible solutions in your home, as you're getting older, that's not something that is really sustainable, probably not something that you'll want to do. So those are some things that I consider in as you're getting older in a tiny house. Also considering if you have built-ins, like the width of a tiny house. When I was building the standard of the width of a tiny house was just at 9 feet. Now there are a lot of people who are using the wider trailers because they don't intend to move their home a lot. So considering if you have built-in furniture, meaning stuff that's not going to be movable, considering the width of the interior space of your home as you need to navigate it as you're getting older. If at some point you need assistance in walking, be considering the width of that for that type of scenario is something that you'd want to consider. Um, Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, all right, so C is saying would love to see some tiny home tours that show more of us. Yeah, we talked about that and we have a conversation. So I think this is an alternative for what I might do with this space and time. I really need a video production crew and I really need some money to do all of the things that I want to do. I'll speak that into existence so that I really want to do tiny house tours in a way that hasn't been done, but I need production. I need some money. I need the lottery or something. Let's put that out there so we can get this done. Thank you for that feedback. All right. How far along has Charlotte moved towards allowing tiny houses in the city limits? Nowhere, no, not at all. Tiny houses on wheels. You can within the city limits. You can have a tiny house on foundation. They don't have a minimum square footage requirement. So if you're interested in putting it on foundation, you can do that within the city limits. If you are considering a tiny house on wheels, Charlotte has not moved. Charlotte has really zero interest in tiny houses on wheels as an alternative housing solution, even though other cities are recognizing the importance and the potential of that, because Charlotte is still chasing big dollar and big money and apartments that cost a lot of money and squeezing them in all the spaces and gentrification or all of those things that are counterproductive to affordable housing, but that's where the money is. And so I can't imagine Charlotte budging at any time soon on tiny houses on wheels. Let's see. What else can I answer here? Oh, there was I answered that about. Okay, how many times have you moved your house? I think I've moved my house 5 times. Um, I think it's been 5 times. Um, do I have to do any special prep? Yes. Yeah, and where I was talking about relocating a little bit early in this presentation, anything that's going to move, you want to secure it. I take things out of. This is something else to consider. So if you're moving your home and you've been in your home in place for a period of time, and you're relocating to another place, you need to consider what have I brought into this house that is adding weight to the house. So if you've been there for a couple of years, sometimes you don't even realize. I brought in some clothes, some another appliance. I brought in, stuff that ends up adding additional weight. So you always want to ensure that as you're getting ready to relocate your house, you're taking into account the weight of your house. You're taking into the account what the trailer, the weight that your trailer can support. Dual axle, triple axle, quad axle trailers have a weight limit. So you want to ensure that you are considering that as you're relocating. It's very easy to bring in stuff and add to the weight of the home and not really even consciously think about it. So you want to consider that. I have actually done things like, so when I move, because I have exterior stuff, I always get a U-Haul because as I've been in place and my exterior stuff, chairs and things that are outside, benches and tables, that can't. So when I first was moving, I could put stuff inside the tiny house and move the tiny house. But I've been in place and bugs are in some of that stuff and stuff gets dirty, like it can't come back in my house now. So I always have a U-Haul where I put things like that. And I have, in considering weight, I have boxed up things and put them also in that U-Haul truck just to be on the more cautious side because I know I have inadvertently added weight to my home that I'm not really thinking about. I also drain my home. So as you're calling water into the house, so you're showering, you're using your sink, you're calling water into the house, going through your pipes from that source. And so I have a drain option so that I can so you're not always using all of the water that you've called into the house. So there's water occasionally sitting in the piping. You also may have water storage if you do a water storage system. I drain my house of the excess water before I relocate my house. There's no need in just carrying weight from water. So those are things that I consider. Anything that's in the house that might slide around, tying, sliding doors. I secure my doors. Pictures. I take pictures off the wall. Obviously, things that are sitting around that are going to move. And I can put them in boxes. Like I might put them in boxes and just sit them in the house in those boxes. I've used my bathtub. I'll put stuff in the bathtub, but just securing it so that it's just not flying around in the house and moving. And then what else do I consider? And for me, there's the consideration of I have to, like, I wrap if you refer to winterization, where I talk about wrapping of the house. So there's a lot of things that have to be undone for my house before I can actually move it. I have an exterior waste system. So I would have to undo all of that before I can move the house, which is why, well, one, I don't intend to move my house anymore now, but previously when I was moving my house, I would stay at a location at least 2 to 3 years because it's expensive to have to install the facilities. I can't think of what infrastructure, yeah, water and plumbing, install it at a new location. Not water and plumbing, that's the same thing. Water and electrical lines, installing it at a new location, undoing stuff where I am. And so for me, that a strategy involved in how often I was moving. If you're going to be frequently moving, you'll want to consider not doing things that are long term, so that you don't have that extent, and not doing things that are permanent. But that is something to consider for moving your home. All right. Hopefully I answered your question. I feel like I said a lot of words. Um, what is the estimated cost of buying a container, or is there a builder contractor that buys and does that work? Um, I am not as familiar with buying containers. That's not kind of the area that I focus on. I did just do a video on estimating your cost for your build to help you think of the things that you need to consider. I think some of that would be applicable to a container home. I am not familiar with builders and contractors that deal in containers, so I can't even give you really any area of expertise there. I do know when you are considering buying a container that you'll want to ensure you know what was previously housed in that container, as far as something like chemicals, something that is going to cause you potential problems down the line. That's the extent of my knowledge of containers, and I unfortunately can't point you in any direction there. Yeah, boo to Charlotte. Yeah, Charlotte just sucks. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Mimi. Yes, Charlotte. Charlotte does need to get its shit together. Um, what do you use to move the tiny house yourself, or tiny house itself? I'm not exactly sure about that question, but other than a tow service, I'm not sure what you're asking. I hire professionals to move my house. I'm not sure what your question is asking. I spoke about that a little bit earlier in this presentation. I hire professionals so that I can use their expertise and their insurance, should something happen. Um, Thank you, Mimi. No, I don't do any of that stuff. I don't have expertise or any skill set in making jewelry. But I like to buy beautiful stuff. Thank you so much. I should have an eyewear eyeglass line. I really need to consult with one of those places so that I can become a representation for their line. Really, I just need to see right now. Um, and I have different glasses that do different things. Don't get me started in that. I've never worn glasses until I started getting older. I'm just happy to be able to see, but yeah, it is a challenge. Um, no, Mimi, did you buy your tiny home already built, or if so, from whom? No, I designed my home from scratch, started with graph paper. My sister helped me get from the graph paper to actual CAD and design. I do sell my design, my plans if you're interested, but no, I did not buy my tiny house already built. I did this, and so I'm happy to say I did this. And I also designed the sunroom. So in my plans, the plans do not include this additional sunroom space. It is the original tiny house only. Um, all right. I think I have answered all of the questions in the chat. I thank y'all for hanging with me today. I really thought this was going to be a quick 30-minute conversation, but as I look at my notes, I should have known better that I did have a lot to cover. I don't see any more questions. I will provide the resources that I spoke to in the description. You want to have a consultation with me, I will provide the way to do so. I would love to chat with you one-on-one to help you in this process. And I am going to make sure I'm not missing any questions. Thank you very much for the super chat love. I appreciate you all very much for that. It is my time and my expertise, and I always say I did work for this knowledge, so I'm happy to share it. And this is how I feel like I share it for free, which is why I do charge for consultations, because that is some extra one-on-one time. But this is where I feel like I can give some love for free. So I do thank you for the super chat love here. All right, I have answered. Mimi is asking, where did you buy the container from? My home is stick built. It's not a container. It is built from the ground, from the trailer up. It is framing. It is wood. It is not a container at all. Thank you, Phyllis. So no, I don't have any expertise around containers. My home is a stick built home. I went and purchased a trailer in October 2014, and then and the trailer, when I say trailer, is a flat trailer, kind of like what you see equipment carried on. It's a 28-foot tiny house trailer, and my home was then framed on with wood framing, like a traditional home build on that trailer. All right, that's it. That's all I got for today. Thank you very much. I hope everyone has a great Sunday. I will You're welcome. I will be back next Sunday for the conversation series. Let me do this properly and get to my close out my session properly. So thank you all very much for joining. This has been What's Your Question, where I answer some of the frequently asked questions that are asked of me, and where I share tips to help someone on their tiny house journey. Thank you so much. Next Sunday is the conversation on intimate spaces, where I interview people in and around the tiny house movement. We talk less about the aesthetics of the house and more about the journey, their intention, and what led them to tiny house in their tiny house journey. I really feel like it's less about the house and more about intention and the person. And I want to share those journeys so that you can relate to their journeys and you can relate to seeing people like us in the movement. Thank you, Sandra. Happy to have you here today. All right. So again, join us here on Sundays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you found this video helpful, I do ask that you like it, you share it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it, and turn on the notifications so that you'll know when content is available, when we're over here in community and having conversation. I thank you all so much. I hope everyone has a great Sunday. Thank you for being here with me today, and take care.